everybody, welcome to Legally Sevvy, where today we will talk about the lawsuit that was filed by none other than Justin Baldoni.
Actor-director Justin Baldoni is now suing his former co-star Blake Lively and her husband Ryan Reynolds, seeking more than $400 million in damages, accusing them of defamation and extortion.
If you guys didn't already see my prior video on the Blake Lively lawsuit, please make sure to check it out before you jump right into this video, where we'll talk about exactly what he has to say and the receipts that he is carrying with him. Because right now, everything is now being put into perspective. He not only answered the complaint from Blake Lively, but he countersued. And that lawsuit was then consolidated into the lawsuit that Blake Lively had filed. So both issues and both lawsuits will be addressed by the prior judge. But for purposes of this video today, we will explore exactly what he was talking about and what he has to say. Now, the lawsuit that he has filed is filed against Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, Leslie Sloan, and Vision PR Inc. and New York Corporation. So let's jump right into it. This lawsuit was filed on January 16th of 2025. Justin starts his complaint by stating, "The following is not a story plaintiffs ever wished to tell. Unfortunately, defendant Blake Lively has unequivocally left them with no choice, not only to set the record straight in response to her accusations, but to put the spotlight on the parts of Hollywood that they have dedicated their careers to being the antithesis of. The task was always going to be an uphill battle. Had Blake chosen to merely write out the self-inflicted press catastrophe she faced in August of 2024, the public would have likely moved on and never known the truth about her. They would have never known that she deliberately and systematically robbed plaintiffs Justin Baldoni and Wayfarer Studios of their movie. No one except the parties involved would have known that she used threats and extortion to relegate the colleagues she once highly praised to a basement to sit out their own premiere, while she enjoyed the spotlight of premiere and an after party that was ultimately co-financed by both Wayfarer and Sony. She would have gotten away with these things and more because Baldoni focused entirely on seeing the film succeed, which have held his tongue, and as he had through the year and a half that Lively tormented him, his family, and his partner." So in here, basically, they started the complaint by saying, if you had just stayed still while we used a PR firm to attack you in August of 2024, then nothing would have happened.
Drama surrounding It Ends With Us has been all the talk lately, and unfortunately, with so much attention, Blake Lively has been put in the hot seat on social media.
First of all, congrats on your little bump.
Congrats on your little bump.
After the interaction went viral, Kirsty revealed that she's infertile and recalled feeling almost paralyzed by her response. When the reporter asked whether she felt free to try everything, she appeared to roll her eyes. Most recently, Blake is receiving backlash for responding to a serious question in reference to the theme of the movie, which is domestic violence, with a joke.
So let's just gonna move a little bit more. They talk about how they feel she destroyed his personal and professional reputation and livelihood and aimed to drive plaintiffs out of business. Now, as you probably already saw, the same thing with the complaint that Blake filed is they're always at the cusp of being driven out of business, right? So take that with a grain of salt. And a reminder, everything in the complaint here is an allegation. It is not proven. It is not a proven fact. Because how things happen generally in litigation is you have the attorneys make a case on your behalf and make the best case they can at the time that they have with the information that they have. And then a judge and a jury will then determine who they will find credible. Because a lot of the times you will find some evidence that very clearly on its face is true and factual. And then maybe you don't know exactly what is true and factual. There may be interpretations of what happened, right? And then on top of that, you have to add the law to see if something that was illegal actually happened or not. So they're taking a position that Blake attempted to destroy his life, which Blake Lively also took, in her complaint. It further appears that Lively worked for months with the equally powerful New York Times to prepare a false and damaging narrative to deploy against the plaintiffs. Not surprisingly, Lively prepared a complaint with the Civil Rights Department in California in an attempt to use the litigation privilege to shield her behind-the-scenes conspiracy with the New York Times, but upon affirmation of belief, the CRD complaint was filed only after defendants spent months feeding falsehoods to the New York Times, intending that they disseminated to damage plaintiffs. Lively delivered the complaint to plaintiffs over the Christmas holiday, and rather than promptly file a lawsuit, Lively, on information on belief, leaked a typically private complaint to the public, utilizing the New York Times as conduit for her revenge. The complaint, upon affirmation of belief, has false information before the complaint was filed, was rifled with lies and doctored evidence. Lively then waited 11 days to file suit against plaintiffs. Okay, so what they're describing here, this is pretty normal in a lawsuit, by the way. Generally, you always have to file a charge with a state agency or the EEOC for when you're alleging a claim of discrimination of any type. Generally, step one of something you always have to do. There might be some states that say, okay, you don't have to file a charge, but some states have that requirement where you have to file a charge before you file a lawsuit. And generally, as it comes to a highly publicized lawsuit, they always talk to the media. They always make a press release and say, hey, press, this is our statement. This is what we're saying happened. And they will always spin it to try and get more media coverage, that is going to be helpful for them. So that by itself is not really that shocking because it is kind of common practice for that to happen. So I'll just skip through that part because at this point it's just not really that interesting because it's more fluff that they're trying to say, oh, she's a powerful actress. She grabbed everybody. Everybody's following what she's saying because it's Blake Lively, right? So we're going to skip through that and actually go to the root of the facts in terms of what happened here. When Lively faced significant public backlash from what was often referred to as her tone-deaf and insensitive press tour for the film, she doubled down on her false and misleading accusations against Baldoni. She seemed determined to make Baldoni the real-life villain of her story. Her publicist, Leslie Sloan, went so far as to propagate malicious stories portraying Baldoni as a sexual predator, a term Lively's husband, Ryan Reynolds, also used to describe Baldoni when he called Baldoni's own agent. Modern society justly reviles sexual harassers and abusers, and Lively knew full well that making those allegations would be a career death sentence for the plaintiffs, especially given that Baldoni has lived his private and public life as an impassioned advocate for gender equality and healthy masculinity. She did not expect, however, that plaintiffs would be able to meet those allegations with concrete documentary evidence, disproving her claims and demonstrating that they, not Lively, were the targets of a calculated and vitriolic smear campaign. The film was a hotly anticipated adaptation of a worldwide best-selling book by Colleen Hoover, and by starring in it as Lily, Lively stood to enhance her already considerable star power. But she was not content merely to headline one of the year's biggest movies. I'm not sure if that's even true, actually. Instead, apparently driven by overweening ambition and need for control. Again, this is just them positioning. Lively eventually leveraged her power as a wealthy celebrity to wrest the reins from her co-star and film's director Baldoni, insisting on total control over every aspect of the film she could get her hands on, from wardrobe to marketing strategy to music, even creating her own cut of the film. Not only Lively's power play cost numerous people their jobs, but at every turn, her wrong-headed creative decisions reflected her fundamental lack of understanding of the book the film was based on. This came to no surprise, given that Lively had not even read the book. Lively's disastrous marketing efforts and tone-deaf press interviews and appearances backfired and led to widespread criticism of Blake's promotional approach to the film's highly sensitive focus on domestic violence. Past videos of Blake resurfaced online, videos that appeared to solidify public perception that she was an insensitive mean girl who cared more about peddling her products than acknowledging the domestic violence survivor community. Social media commenters quickly pointed out that her tie-in of her alcohol beverages was in particular poor taste, given that the World Health Organization estimates that 55% of domestic violence incidents are linked to alcohol. Unbelievably, Blake made this harmful and irresponsible message worse by naming a drink at her premiere after party, While You Wait, after the character who committed domestic violence in the film. The suggestion that Wayfarer caused the online backlash against her is absurd, given the evidence of her own insensitivity. Sadly, this backlash could have been avoided had she not refused to meet with the film's domestic violence partner organization, nomore.org, as Baldoni had offered. Even a brief visit to their website or a simple online search would have readily uncovered this or other information. Meanwhile, Baldoni, whom Lively herself had ensured was excluded from participating in marketing efforts, was safeguarded from this backlash as he focused on amplifying the voices of those affected by domestic violence as originally intended when he reached out to author Colleen Hoover 5 years earlier. Baldoni's sincere efforts were well received, even more so in contrast with Lively's campaign to downplay the premise of the film and sell hair care and alcohol products. Lively, enraged that her plans were foiled and armed with proof of alleged sexual harassment in the form of a 17-point list of demands she had required plaintiffs to sign just months earlier, focused her rage on Baldoni, blaming him for the consequences of her own missteps. Meanwhile, Jones, founder of Jones Works LLC. So if you guys remember from the prior video, we talked about Jones Works, and this is how she got some of the text messages. Was Wayfarer's and Baldoni's PR firm was embroiled in personal and professional crisis. Her increasingly erratic behavior had driven away not only high-profile clients, but also her right-hand woman, plaintiff Jennifer Avell, who oversaw the Jones Works Los Angeles office. Jones' behavior grew more and more bizarre. She lashed out at loyal clients like Wayfarer in rage-filled rants and veered away from professional experience and strategy when making critical decisions affecting Jones Works clients. After a final outburst against Wayfarer in which she outright refused to comply with their direct instructions, Wayfarer had no choice but to cut ties with Jones and Jones Works, rather than leave their public image in their hands of what appeared to be an out-of-control Jones, whose actions were not aligned with Wayfarer or Baldoni's worldview and wishes. Jones was filled with impotent rage at Wayfarer and Avell, who a month before had announced her decision to leave and form her own company. Jones saw an opportunity for revenge and she took it. Upon information and belief, Jones, Lively, Reynolds, and Leslie Sloan and others concocted a plan whereby Jones would seize Avell's phone upon her departure and mine it for messages that, stripped out of context, could show a false narrative that the press coverage of Lively's careless and opportunistic comments were not her fault at all, but rather a smear campaign done by Baldoni and his team. On information and belief, Jones' role in the scheme accounts for her conspicuous absence for Lively's retelling of events. Plaintiffs are informed and believe that defendants have been working in concert since at least August 21st of 2024, when Sloan boasted to Nathan that she had seen the texts and Nathan would soon be sued. Though Lively claimed Baldoni was the one smearing her, the reality was that Lively and her team, who carefully planned and implemented a vile smear campaign against Baldoni and Wayfarer to deflect attention and blame for Lively disastrous misjudgments. Lively would recast herself as a long-suffering martyr by portraying Baldoni and Wayfarer as her persecutors, the masterminds behind a smear campaign that evidence will show did not exist. Defendant Sloan of Vision PR was all too willing to carry out this strategy, especially once armed with ammunition by Jones, who was bent on revenge against her ex-employee and a former client. Shortly after the film's premiere and the public backlash against Lively, together with her husband, Ryan Reynolds, demanded through their talent agency that plaintiffs publicly apologize for their so-called mistakes during production in order to deflect the avalanche of negative media coverage. Reynolds and Lively drafted a statement and demanded that Baldoni, Wafer, and Heath issue that statement, requiring them to apologize to the public and fall on their sword despite having done nothing wrong, or else the gloves would come off. Multiple executives acknowledged that their experience that Lively and Reynolds' threats were not to be taken lightly, though admitting to false, vague, and unspecified mistakes would be tantamount to admitting a career-ending misconduct. Baldoni, Wafer, and Heath refused to apologize. They took a stand knowing full well what was going to happen, and that is exactly what happened. Just as plainly as they knew full well that their claims were entirely baseless because their own wrongfully obtained evidence proved that neither the sexual harassment nor the accompanying smear campaign against Lively ever existed, yet Lively moved forward with her plan with ruthless precision, doubling down in the face of abundant evidence, casting doubt on the veracity of her story. Lively even went so far as to serve her lawsuit on the Los Angeles-based defendants as they evacuated their homes in the midst of devastating fires engulfing the city. On a day when defendants were gathering their kids and pets, preparing go-backs and monitoring evacuation orders, while fearing for their homes, Lively, from the safety of her penthouse in New York, deployed process servers in the midst of these troubling times. Right, so now we get to some of the alleged facts, which again are allegations. They're not proven until a jury decides what is factually accurate, what actually happened. In 2019, Wafer acquired the film rights to It Ends With Us, a Colleen Hoover novel that was published in 2016. When It Ends With Us, author Colleen Hoover watched 5 Feet Apart in theaters, she told Baldoni, "You are the right person to make this movie." So this is an email that shows the email from Justin to Colleen, saying, "It's a pleasure to meet you. This is some of my backstory, my intention. As Johanna may have told you, I'm building and got funding for a company whose mission is to tell high-end, meaningful stories. And I just finished my first film with my second setup at WB going this fall based on this short doc I directed 7 years ago." Colleen replied, "Thank you so much for your email. I wasn't expecting you to read it so quickly. I would love to talk to you more about the project. You get the book. And that's the most important thing to me. My big fear is that I'll option it to someone who thinks it's a hot romance when they'll take it in the absolute wrong direction." And then she talks more about what she thinks about the book and where she thinks the movie should go. The complaint does state, in casting Blake Lively, a world-renowned actor with talent and charisma, in the leading role, they entrusted her with that vision to bring Lily to life. Although Wayfarer learned that Lively had a reputation for being difficult to work with, Baldoni at the time was not dissuaded and found her to be genuine. During pre-production, Baldoni and Lively began a promising and close collaboration. On or about December 31st of 2022, Lively agreed to take the lead role of Lily Bloom. As part of subsequent negotiations, Lively was granted an executive producer credit, a title often given to a talent of her stature. Lively had requested a producer credit, but Wayfarer and Sony demurred, given that such a title would not accurately reflect the role that she was asked to play in the production. Wayfarer did not request nor require that Lively contribute to the film in any capacity beyond her roles as an actor and executive producer. In the beginning, it appeared the relationship was going to be positive and collaborative. Their relationship grew close. Baldoni and Lively shared stories and pictures from their lives, commiserated over family illnesses, and exchanged jokes and memes. Baldoni offered concern and support when Lively faced family health concerns, and they texted almost daily. And a friendly banter established a comfortable dynamic that under typical circumstances would have made working together easy. Lively even felt comfortable enough to make silly jokes, redirecting a sweet compliment Baldoni gave. "Well played. I feel the same. It's such a good feeling to get work done that we're proud of and to do it together. It just clicks when we find it, and that's just as rewarding as filming it or editing or marketing or releasing it. This is all storytelling. This is why we do it. Thank you for your collaboration. I'm really proud of what we're doing. This just is loved. I like Sentimental Blake. Never met her. I also like Asshole Blake. Don't worry. Okay, good night. I've met her. That was the nature of their relationship, which made Lively's later allegations all the more baffling. Lively begins asserting control almost immediately. Almost immediately, Lively began inserting herself into the production process in intrusive ways well beyond the scope of her contractual entitlements. For example, she began to insist on creative control over her character's wardrobe. While lead actors are sometimes granted approval over the character's general look, they generally do not receive full control over wardrobe decisions without input from the director or producers. What may seem like an innocuous request can in fact have monumental impact on film production. Ignoring the director's vision for her character and disposing of the weeks of effort and creativity spent by wardrobe team on shopping and carefully crafting the wardrobe, Lively sent hundreds of images to the film's costume designer, including into the late hours of the evening, depicting the wardrobe she wanted for her character. The costume designer had to reshop Lively's wardrobe, far exceeding the allocated budget and diverting time and resources, while also preparing wardrobes for the rest of the cast. At one point, Lively insisted that her character had money and could afford $5,000 shoes, despite being a fledgling small business owner. This forced Baldoni to rethink the entire script that had been in the works for well over a year and had been approved by Sony and Wayfarer, a script that Wayfarer had commissioned multiple drafts of and incorporated countless of notes. And the wardrobe budget ballooned. Lively often refused to participate in wardrobe fittings at the production office, which was a mere 15 minutes from her home. Instead, she insisted that the costume department pack up wardrobe and deliver it to her personal residence. Loading the wardrobe department on trucks and delivering the contents to her home in the middle of congested Manhattan for fittings cost time and money, always in short supply of any major film. Requests of this nature are typically made during contract negotiations. Since Lively had not made such a request, this added expense was not included in the budget. Lively, who had greater obligations to the studios as an executive producer, paid no heed to budget constraints and let alone to the months of planning that had already been completed. In an effort to maintain harmony in the set at the start of their working relationship and to avoid further delays, Baldoni and the studios reluctantly ceded full control to Lively over her wardrobe. This concession quickly proved regrettable. On the first day of principal photography, paparazzi captured and published photos of Lively's character wearing her hand-picked wardrobe. These images were widely reported as unflattering and sparked a backlash from Sony. Baldoni received direct criticism from Sony, who voiced serious concerns about the impact of the photos on the film's public's reception. Following these events, Baldoni approached Lively in her trailer to discuss the wardrobe. The conversation, while professional, took considerable time and was later grossly misinterpreted by her complaint, which falsely characterized the exchange as a lengthy outburst that delayed filming and caused the crew to wait for hours, while Baldoni cried in her dressing room. On information and belief, Lively circulated this false account to the New York Times with the intention and result that it be widely published. This conversation did not take hours, and any length of time it took was not because Baldoni cried for hours. In truth, rather than to take heed of the concerns of the film's distributor and director, Lively took this time to, among other things, suggest to Baldoni that he was being gaslit by Sony, Heath, and other producer, and tried to convince him to let her continue to take the helm. Baldoni did briefly become emotional during the conversation, but only in response to what he believed was a genuine compliment from Lively, praising his work as a director and actor. In hindsight, this was part and parcel of the ongoing pattern of manipulation and gaslighting by Lively. Lively then later distorted the conversation in support of her baseless harassment allegations, alleging that Baldoni made inappropriate comments on her appearance. In reality, Baldoni, the film's director, was laying the distributor's concerns and the widespread social media criticism regarding the wardrobe failure to meet audience expectations, a sentiment Baldoni shared. This incident is just one of many examples of Lively's troubling pattern of manipulation and lies. As another example, early in the pre-production stage, Lively sent Baldoni a long text describing how directors never permitted her to write scenes for the movies she acted for or gave her writing credits, even making her hand scribble her suggestions for lines so that they could not be traced to her. Lively boasted that she had even written for her husband's movies. Then Lively asked if she could take a pass at writing the rooftop scene in Dance With Us, in which the characters Ryle and Lively first meet. This pivotal scene, much loved by book fans, was critical for setting the tone for the movie, so Baldoni was reluctant to allow an actor, rather than a union screenwriter, to rewrite this key scene. But Baldoni felt the need to allow Lively to rewrite the scene and agreed to take a look at what she put together. The draft of the rooftop scene that Lively sent Baldoni dramatically differed from what had been written originally. Baldoni was hesitant about the many changes, but thanked her for her passion and diplomatically told her that the scene will likely end up being somewhere between the original version and Lively's version. Seemingly stung by the mild resistance, Lively did not respond and went silent for multiple days. Later, she confirmed in a text message that Baldoni's response, "Of course, didn't feel great for me," or another mega celebrity friend and Ryan Reynolds, to have my passion praised instead of my specific contribution. Lively was referring to an earlier meeting where Lively summoned Baldoni to her New York penthouse, where Baldoni was greeted by Ryan Reynolds, who launched into enthusiastic praise for Lively's version of the scene. Hours later, as the meeting was ending, a famously close friend of Reynolds and Lively walked into the room and similarly began praising Lively's script. Baldoni understood the subtext needed to comply with the direction for the script. Later, Baldoni felt obliged to text Lively to say that he liked her pages and hadn't needed Reynolds or the mega celebrity friend to pressure him. Lively responded that the two were her dragons. Lively went on to say, "They, Reynolds and the mega celebrity friend, also know I'm not always good at making sure I'm seen and utilized for fear of threatening egos or for fear of affecting the ease of the process. They don't give a shit about that, and because of that, everybody listens to them with immense respect and enthusiasm. So I guess I have to stop worrying about people liking me. I don't know emoji," emphasis added. The message could have not been clearer. Baldoni was not just dealing with Lively, he was also facing Lively's dragons, two of the most influential and wealthy celebrities in the world who were not afraid to make things very difficult for him. Okay, so Blake said, "If you send me the FDX, I'll work when I can steal moments. And yes, of course, please send to Christy. We're all on the same team with the same goal." Great. Also was working on rooftop scene today. I really love what you did. It does help a lot, makes it so much fun and interesting. And I would love if I felt to say without Ryan and Taylor, really are a talent across the board, really excited and grateful to do this together. That's very appreciated. So that's what Blake says. It means a lot. I'm deeply inspired by the film we're going to make outside of the success of this book. We have such an opportunity to not only surprise people who love the book, but reach an even bigger audience by making an undeniably dynamic and also commercial film. The moment that excited me the other day was when you said you're not funny. You are going to kill that rooftop scene. You know it, I'm sure. Even though it was said in a playful self-deprecation that we'll participate in, it made me think of the process as a whole. Please know I trust that on the day you got me, and I hope that you trust that I got you if you want it. We're in this together, and we're two of the most determined people I know. We also have very high bars set for ourselves. To collaborate with that type of partner is a gift that neither of us will squander because we both care too much about the result and also the experience. I have no motives except for you to win. As a director and as an actor, as a studio, as a writer, if you win, I win. If you win, our movie wins. We are aligned. And I will bring everything I have to this. And as for Blank and Ryan, and Blank for that matter, I'm the luckiest motherfucker on the planet to have them as my dance moms level stage moms. They are embarrassingly effusive. That said, they're also my most trusted partners and the people I go to first with anything creative I touch. And I'm the person they each go to first. That reciprocal creativity and support has been one of my life's greatest and most fulfilling gifts. When they laughed and signed off on the pages, I felt good to send them to you. They asked what you thought specifically after they checked in so many times. I told them that you laughed a bunch and said it was probably a blend, but you appreciate my passion so much, which of course didn't feel great for me or them. to have passion, to be praised instead of any specific contribution, or even just that you didn't like the pages, which was fine also. So I think they wanted you and me to see how they felt about the work, because they've been by my side by so far too many experiences where I've been overlooked. I spoke to you about this when we first met. They watched me handwrite scripts because the director is too afraid to send the FDX file. Yet he scans and has someone hand type all 120 pages of my pencil rewrites. They watched me be hired as a writer and paid a significant fee for it, but on the condition that I never asked for credit, which I could give a shit about, is more the principle of the dynamics at play. They watched the other side of it too, where I'm told at signing on that I'm wanting as a true collaborator, but once we get to work, I'm really just wanted as a yes man, audience, and actor. Both Ryan and Blank have established themselves as absolute titans as writers and storytellers outside of the primary gig, just singing or just acting, or Blank just directing. I'm so lucky to have them as creative barometers, but also to have them as people who prop me up and make sure I'm seen for all I can do and offer, because they know firsthand all I can contribute. They also know I'm not always as good as making sure I'm seen or utilized for fear of threatening egos or fear of affecting the ease of the process. They don't give a shit about that, and because of that, everybody listens to them with immense respect and enthusiasm. So I guess I have to stop worrying about people liking me. That's a very long text. If you ever get around to watching Game of Thrones, you'll appreciate that I'm Khaleesi, and like her, I happen to have a few dragons. For better or for worse, but usually for better, because my dragons also protect those I fight for. So really, we all benefit from those gorgeous monsters of mine. You will too, I can promise you. Difficult proved to be a gross understatement. The Baldoni initially invited Lively to make changes to the script. Lively began altering the script daily. The frequency of Lively's revisions alarmed the producers, the director, and the studio, who anticipated that her interference would persist every day of the shoot and disrupt the carefully planned production schedule. So here we have some text messages. Producer, are you listening to this? She's fixing the script. I think Anne's advice was actually wrong. Blaze now directing the movie. Jamie, I'm listening. Talking through it is better than not seeing what's possible, as long as any decision is done with approval. Producer, not for something that was already intimately planned. This will be every day of the shoot. Jamie, I know, I'm not sure what can be done honestly at this point in terms of Blake. More than a year later, during a red carpet interview at the New York film premiere, Lively stated, that iconic rooftop scene, my husband actually wrote it. Nobody knows that, but you know. This certain relation directly contradicted Lively's previous insistence that she had written the scene, and certainly cast Reynolds' high praise for the rewritten scene in a different light. The film credited screenwriter, when asked about the claim that Reynolds had written this scene, graciously responded, so if I'm being told that Ryan wrote it, then great, how wonderful, she went to acknowledge. There were a few little flourishes that I did right, and if those flourishes came up from Ryan, I think that's wonderful. This was also the first time that plaintiffs learned that Reynolds, who had no formal role whatsoever in the film's production, had made unauthorized changes to the script in secret. Baldoni, equally blindsided by this news when he discovered in real time during a recording interview with Access Hollywood, reacted by also praising Reynolds, so as not to harm Lively. So now we have an email from Sony Legal Affairs. It ends with us, Ryan Reynolds' issue. Hi, we certainly need some clarity on public comments made about Ryan Reynolds potentially contributing writing services for the rooftop scene. Can you provide additional information on this, as there are no contracts? His services are not in the chain, nor is his name anywhere in the credits. One of the media reports which cite to this claim was made by Blake Lively, and then he has a cite. Thanks for clarifying. A service was rendered, obviously we require signed documentation immediately. Baldoni had also introduced to the trainer Don, who became Baldoni's personal trainer by Lively. Don directed Baldoni's preparation for the film role, including his nutrition and exercise, made special accommodations for Baldoni's back injury, and Baldoni even paid to receive Don's meal delivery service. Privately, Baldoni reached out to Don as his personal trainer to ask what Lively weighed so he could train his back muscles in preparation for a lift scene. This was important to avoid injury not only to Baldoni, who suffered from lifelong back injuries, multiple bulging discs, and chronic pain, but also to Lively, if the lift could not be completed successfully and safely. Notwithstanding Lively's recent attempts to deny the existence of such a scene, it was only nixed at her insistence after having it being planned and rehearsed. The next morning, Baldoni was summoned to the penthouse by Lively and greeted by Reynolds, who swore Baldoni and accused him of fat-shaming his wife. How dare you fucking ask about my wife's weight? What's wrong with you? The confrontation from Reynolds and Lively was so aggressive that Baldoni felt he had no choice but to offer repeated and completely unwarranted apologies for what was a good faith and reasonable question to ask the trainer. Reynolds demanded Baldoni remove the scene entirely. Lively refused to perform this lift scene in the end, even after it was rehearsed with a stunt double. In her own complaint, Lively flat out lies about the absence of the scene by claiming the scene was not in the film. The only reason the scene was not in the film was because Lively and Reynolds ensured it was taken out of the film. So it's really interesting as we're going to go through the complaint to see how he is responding to the issues that she brought up in her complaint. So hopefully you're kind of seeing both. She said in her complaint that he was asking about her weight, and here he's explaining the reasons why. He's explaining what happened. There's always two sides to any one story. And this is why generally we have a jury of our own peers listen to both sides to actually determine what was really going on. Is this credible or is he lying, right? Is she lying? That's what the jury will determine. In fact, Lively had earlier expressed insecurity about her postpartum figure, and Baldoni made every attempt to genuinely reassure her. In this exchange, she stated as her director that anything you feel insecure about, we will talk through and get creative together and make you comfortable. I just don't want you to stress about your body. It's the last thing you need. When he later tried to do that, Lively responded with allegations of sexual harassment, followed by a lawsuit. Blake Lively said, kicking ass, but still a ton of work with not a lot of time. What's the chance we can do body scenes at the end of the schedule? Justin, I'm sure you are. Honestly, there's 1 billion moving parts to schedule right now. I just turned in the rewrite, so they're hard at work. So much of it comes down to locations and the other cast availability. So really, to be honest, I have no clue. I want you to know you will look amazing. Anything you are insecure about, we will talk through and get creative together, make you comfortable. I just don't want you to stress about your body. It's the last thing you need. As soon as I have a rough schedule that even remotely accurate, I will share. And I'll make sure the team keeps this in mind as well. Blake Lively then sent another text. Thank you for your voice memo. It is deeply appreciated. You're everything you promised to be as a collaborator. Thank you. I know my job here. And this piece is a big part of my job here. We both understand this assignment as actors in the roles, but also as producers and also as marketers. We understand artistically, yes, but we get what we need to do in all aspects for this movie commercially. As woke as we both are and work to be, this movie requires a certain aesthetic. It is part of the job that we both excitedly sign up for. I don't shy away from it because it's not problematic. It's the assignment. Like when someone is about to start an athletic event, it's their job to be in top shape. My husband and I both look at certain rules as athletic events, and this is one of them. It's not always a part of the job, but on this one it is, and that's great. As much as I love not to think about it, that would be irresponsible and also impossible because it's unrealistic not to acknowledge what I still need to do. This is my job here, and I meet my responsibilities with extreme work ethic. I look for solutions to achieve my high goals instead of lowering my goals. We all win when we are firing at our highest capabilities, and you and I both are. And we will continue to. I just need as much time as possible because I just had my 4th baby. I understand you'll never personally know all the nuances of challenges unless you live through this physical moment in time and with the physical road ahead. So having you understanding and support to help me pull this off is critical and very, very appreciated. Not just in my experience, but also healing from experiences past. So thank you. We are going to kill it and be so fit. They have to lola us to look less banging. Okay. Well, that's interesting. Definitely some things are falling more into place as we're seeing the text messages and seeing what actually is happening. Lively then delivered an ultimatum. If Baldoni could not get on board with her work methods, he had 2 weeks to recast her. Implicit in this ultimatum was the threat to destroy Baldoni's reputation and career, as Lively well knew Baldoni had worked hard throughout his career to earn and deserve a reputation. based on his passionate advocacy for human rights, a reputation she would later exploit and weaponize against him. If Lively were to back out of the film, especially based on accusations of fat shaming, Baldoni's reputation as life work would be left in tatters. He had no choice but to bow to Lively and Reynolds' demands. Concerns about Lively's undue influence over the film began to grow even before the film started. He cannot let her have opinions on everything. Blake? Or she's going to be co-directing this film. Yes. Jamie. Yeah, we were talking about that a lot yesterday. Producer. Exactly. This is why everybody's starting to lose it. We've been talking about the same thing for months. Jamie. Yep, starting to get resolved. Producer. No, it's not. This was the first time Lively openly moves to seize control of the film from Baldoni, but it would not be the last. By the time production began, Lively and Baldoni had worked together for months, and Lively expressed gratitude for her collaboration. This note means so much to me. I'm excited to start tomorrow with only one piece of the journey. We started months ago, and I'm grateful for what we've built so far. Thank you for caring so much and for putting every bit of you into showing it. You've given so much of your time to fight for great, and that hasn't gone unappreciated or unseen for a moment. Throughout the first filming period, Lively continued to share her open and unguarded thoughts on her life and her character. She talked about wardrobe choices to make her character much sexier. We'll show you both ways, but Beanie is much sexier. It's a look. Feels TV without, especially with a crop top in the snow. It justifies the rest of the skin and also is a girl I would check out walking down the street because it washes the effort of the rest of the look. So this is from Blake Lively to Justin Baldoni. Lively continued to express her warm appreciation and respect for Baldoni as the filming continued, even though she acknowledged she could be difficult and critical of others. Lively's intimate comfort with Baldoni continued as filming progressed in June of 2023. After the alleged harassment and uncomfortable situations allegedly occurred, she even invited Baldoni to her trailer to rehearse while she was pumping breast milk. I'm just pumping in my trailer if you want to work out our lines. This was sent on June 2nd of 2023. Again, if you guys remember, she was saying that they were walking in on her while, she didn't have a shirt on. Lively was so close and comfortable with Baldoni that she freely breastfed in front of him during meetings. She took photos of him holding and soothing her crying baby in her penthouse. They laughed deliriously during late-night writing sessions, and all these events took place after the alleged sexual harassment. Lively's accusations seemed to come out of the blue. She even knew his tea order. Lively set the tone for personal discussions on set, including what language was acceptable. For example, on one occasion while filming a restaurant scene, Lively sat on the floor in a painfully expensive shoes while discussing with a group of male cast and crew how sexy her shoes were. Lively had no issue using the word sexy herself, but apparently took note of the times Baldoni said the word in her presence. Though she was loose and relaxed in her speech on set, she was increasingly stringent in her demands she imposed on production. She rewrote her own dialogue constantly and took it upon herself to make unilateral changes to other characters' lines, effectively rewriting the script day by day. The pattern of domineering interference caused unending interruptions to the production process, leading to entirely unnecessary stress, chaos, and delays. It is well documented on film footage how frequently she requested changes and how at every turn Baldoni took her thoughts, and out of fear of repercussions, he consistently tried to accommodate. During labor strikes, Lively moves to seize absolute power. To make the most of the time during the strike, Baldoni began editing the footage that had been captured to date, starting the director's process and turning footage into film. Lively expressed excitement over returning to shoot in the fall in New York, making no mention of any discomfort or harassment that would be brought up only later. Both before and during the strike, Lively's eager involvement in the production took on a more insistent and manipulative tone as she asked for access to the dailies and early cut scenes, both inappropriate and unorthodox requests. Wayfair, Baldoni, and another producer in the firm strategized on how to respond to Lively, which became common practice so as not to trigger backlash from Lively. The text exchange below documents adamant objections to giving Lively the dailies. Not only was it an inappropriate overreach, But there was very real concern that a simple ask, such as rewriting a couple scenes, would turn into a complete takeover. They rightly feared that giving her the dailies could turn into her demanding to edit the whole movie, which is exactly what ultimately happened. Hey, would you mind giving me access to dailies? And I'm curious which takes you liked the scenes you showed Warren. My manager flew out to visit set and leaves tomorrow a.m. He heard about it from blank, and I'd love to show him. I appreciate you may too be slammed right now to make this happen, but maybe someone else can facilitate. Thanks so much. Thoughts? I say no, but check her contracts first. LOL. I was waiting for blank to respond first. It's an absolute no for me as well. Respectfully, not sure the best way to respond, being how delicate it is. I think you can either not respond until tomorrow, or say you need to talk to the team, or just say you're not comfortable with it. Keith said maybe we can let this be a Sony decision and you can respond with that by now. Thank you, spoke to blank too. I think I'm just going to say yes and share her playlist of a bunch of good takes from different scenes the last of the 3 or 4 days. Blank said no, LOL. Producer will say no and you're going to send? No, she liked the idea of a playlist, no to access to all dailies. I wasn't clear in text. Okay, copy. Basically send her a playlist of what I showed her agent, and then if or when she responds and says, can you send me everything? Then I'll say I'm not comfortable with that. Blank believes she will then start to edit the movie and tell me which takes she will use if she has access to everything. Yes, I agree with that. Also, this is exactly how the writing process started. She asked if it was okay if she could take a pass at some dialogue tweaks on the rooftop scene. Just back to Blake, she's in good spirits and seems happy about this. Very nice conversation. Good. Great to hear. Hi, sorry for the slow response. Yeah, family's good, but brutal being away for so long. Happy we're finally together, less happening. All things overall. Had to hire new editors who I adore. They're going through everything now. I'm so happy you felt energized by what you saw. Your performance is really beautiful, stunning, actually. Read dailies. Obviously, you know I want your input. That's why I sent the 5-hour playlist. But at this point, it's too early for me to share all the dailies. I start my cut in early August, given the new editors, and still going through the rest myself. Also figuring out our shooting plan as I have to cut and combine and find ways to scale down for budget. Once I'm physically in the edit and have touched scenes myself, I'll love to share them with you. I hope you enjoy this time with your family. Talk soon. At this point, Lively reluctantly paid nominal lip service to the notion that Baldoni, the film director, was entitled to the time and space needed for his directorial cut, but continued to push. I don't want to infringe on your time with your cut, of course. Don't feel the need to send me cutscenes. I was just excited to see. Great dailies. None of the producers have access to the dailies, or is it just you? Baldoni shared limited access with Daily, feeling uncomfortable all the while. Yet he already knew he had to bow to Lively's demands in order to get out of the film and his powerful message. Finally, he put his foot down, sending Lively one final scene and telling her he would not be sending her any more cuts until he was finished. Well, that is part 1 of the Justin complaint. It really shows a different view of what happened. So part 2, we will discuss the points on how he responds to all the allegations that she made of sexual harassment. And he has a chance to then talk about how she took over the film. So stay tuned for that. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you have not already. Leave a comment below and tell me what you think. And I will talk to you later. Bye, everybody.